All right, let's dive in. Chances are, you've probably used the word Kafkaesque to describe some kind of frustrating, bureaucratic mess. But what does it really mean? Today, we're going to pull that term apart. We're going to get past the cliché and really uncover the bizarre, brilliant, and kind of terrifying machinery working just underneath.
I mean, we've all been there, right? You're just trying to do something simple. Fill out a form, get a license renewed, whatever. And suddenly you're stuck in this endless maze of rules that don't make sense. Every step you take forward just seems to push you 2 steps back. It's that feeling, that specific feeling of being completely powerless against some giant faceless system.
And this right here, this just nails it, doesn't it? It's the perfect little loop of complete nonsense. You can't start because you haven't finished, but you can't finish because you can't even start. This kind of maddening circular trap is usually our first taste of what the world of Franz Kafka is all about.
So if you look it up, the dictionary gives you a definition like this. And yeah, that's not wrong. It definitely gets the nightmarish part right. But honestly, this is just scratching the surface. To really get what makes something Kafkaesque, you have to look past the frustrating situation itself and dig into the logic that's actually creating it.
And this is the key, right here. The true terror in Kafka's world doesn't come from some monster hiding in the closet. No, it comes from a system of logic that is working perfectly, that is totally consistent with its own rules. It just so happens that the rules themselves are completely insane. The horror is that the madness has a rule.
And that rulebook, well, it's pretty much built on 2 core ingredients that really define what a Kafkaesque scenario is. On the one hand, you've got something called circular reasoning. And on the other, you have something even stranger called dream logic. Okay, so let's start with circular reasoning. This is basically the system that eats its own tail. The only proof that the rules are valid are the rules themselves. The authority is legitimate because the authority says so. Your application is denied because the rules for approval say you need an already approved application. It's like a fortress with no doors and no windows, designed to be impossible to get into.
Then you mix in this second really weird ingredient, dream logic. And here's the bizarre part. Insane, nonsensical things happen, and everyone just treats it as, well, perfectly normal. In one of Kafka's most famous stories, a man wakes up as a giant insect, and his first thought isn't, oh my god, I'm a bug. It's, oh no, I'm going to be late for work. It's that quiet acceptance of the absurd that is just so deeply unsettling.
So, okay, we've got circular reasoning plus dream logic, and it creates these nightmare worlds. But what if Kafka wasn't just writing a bunch of weird, spooky stories? What if he was actually documenting something much, much bigger about the world we all live in?
Here's a really powerful way to look at it. What if Kafka's stories aren't just stories, but are actually the foundational myths for our time? I'm not talking about myths with gods and monsters and heroes, but myths about the new invisible giants that rule our lives.
Think about it, right? Old myths helps people understand things like nature, fate, the gods. Well, this theory suggests Kafka does the same thing for us, but with modern powers. The giant corporation, the sprawling government, the automated phone menu from hell. His stories give a name and a shape to that very specific, modern feeling of being one small person caught in a vast, indifferent, and utterly nonsensical machine. And that brings us to a really fascinating final piece of the puzzle. It's about how these myths work. If you actually read Kafka, you'll notice he's not very descriptive. He doesn't spend a lot of time telling you what things look like. The horror isn't something you see. It's a paradox, a puzzle you have to solve in your head. So why? Why is the horror built this way? The answer might just have to do with the different ways our brains work.
So let me introduce you to this idea, aphantasia. For most people, if I say, picture a red apple, an image of an apple pops into their head. But for people with aphantasia, they understand the concept of a red apple, but no image appears. Their imagination is purely conceptual. It's not visual. And this distinction explains so much. Most horror that we're used to is visual, right? It relies on a scary monster you can see, or a shocking image, a jump scare. But Kafka's horror, it's almost entirely conceptual. It's the dread of injustice, the anxiety of being in a logical trap, the soul-crushing hopelessness of a system you can never ever beat. It's a type of horror that doesn't need a mind's eye to be terrifying.
So here's where it all clicks. For someone with aphantasia, reading about a gruesome monster might not really land with the same impact, but the pure intellectual terror of a broken system, the inescapable nightmare of a logical paradox, that hits with its full force. It's like Kafka was writing in a language of horror that bypasses visual imagination altogether, making it uniquely powerful for a mind that thinks in concepts.
So, let's wrap this all up. We've seen that Kafkaesque is way more than just annoying paperwork. It's a specific kind of nightmare built on circular reasoning and dream logic. We've explored this wild idea that Kafka's stories are basically the myths for our modern bureaucratic world. And finally, we saw how, because this horror is conceptual instead of visual, it connects in a really unique and powerful way with people who have aphantasia, people whose minds work with concepts, not images.
And that kind of leaves us with one last, pretty unsettling question to chew on. If Kafka really did write the myths for our modern age, what does it mean that we feel like we're living inside them almost every single day? Are we all just characters, trying to find our way through a world that's built on his bizarre and totally inescapable logic?